Well, first things first, welcome back to the Balkans, one of my favorite regions of Europe, and in particular welcome to Sofia, the stunning capital city of Bulgaria, which is actually the oldest country in all of Europe. But if you've watched this channel before, you might already have a sense of what we're going to be looking into in this video. We're going to be looking at the socialist period, when Bulgaria was a people's republic between 1946 and 1989. So yeah, let's hit these streets and let's look for some socialist relics. Alright, so the first thing that I'm about to do is head over to Vitosha Boulevard, which is basically the main pedestrian street here in Sofia, and I'm staying about a 2-minute walk from it, so location couldn't be more perfect. And I guess this is the end of Vitosha Boulevard, and here you have an Orthodox cathedral, Nedelya. Bulgaria is a largely Orthodox country, although there are other religious denominations here as well. Well, you know, we are incredibly close to Turkey, and Bulgaria was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire for a significant period. And you can tell, because, well, there's a mosque here, and there's still a pretty sizable Turkish population throughout this country. Also interesting how Bulgaria would have been the southeastern flank of the Warsaw Pact during the period of the so-called Cold War. You know, so you had Turkey and Greece, NATO members, right next door. Man, we could really be anywhere on Karl Marx-Allee in Berlin. It looks practically the same. The Council of Ministers of Bulgaria. And this over here is the National Assembly. I think you can still see the hammer and the sickle in the center. So yeah, this here is the SUM, or the Central Department Store, which dates back to 1957. And the thing is, most of it was closed in 2023. And actually, from the looks of it, all of it is closed. I don't think it's open at all at the moment. Well, if any place in Sofia is going to make you feel as if you're in the former Soviet Union, it's this area right here with all of these incredible socialist classicist buildings, you know, Stalin-era architecture. And, you know, it's interesting as well because, well, Bulgaria was part of the Warsaw Pact. It was an independent country, but it was often said that it was really the 16th republic of the Soviet Union because while other, you know, Eastern European countries maybe had a divergence from the USSR on certain issues from time to time, Bulgaria tended to really toe the line. Well, another piece of socialist classicism, the Opera and Ballet Theater from the 1950s. So again, very reminiscent of the Stalin-era architecture before things began to become a lot more minimalistic across not only the Soviet Union, but Eastern Europe in general. So, you know, it's just a few days until the 80th anniversary of the capitulation of Nazi Germany at the end of the war. And it's really interesting because actually when I think of, well, the Nazis coming to power, I think a lot about Bulgaria, this country. And that's because, well, the Reichstag fire, which took place on February 27th of 1933, was blamed by Hitler and the Nazis on the communists. But more specifically, blamed on 3 Bulgarians and a Dutchman. Now, the 3 from Bulgaria, led really by Georgi Dimitrov, were exonerated. And Dimitrov was really known for, well, launching a very eloquent defense of himself and his comrades, and he would go on to actually head up the Communist International. So the Red Flat is definitely a place that I would suggest that you come and visit when here in Sofia. And I found the audio guide to be very nuanced and balanced overall, which is actually quite interesting because often when it comes to exhibitions in former socialist countries, they tend to be, well, very one-sided. And yeah, the flat was just a recreation in a sense of what a typical apartment would have looked like in Sofia back in the 1980s. But you also saw things like Coca-Cola manufactured in Bulgaria, I think beginning in the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken. And this was during the period where Todor Zhivkov was leader of Bulgaria. I mean, he was actually leader from 1954 to 1989 and remains incredibly popular in Bulgaria today. There's a great sense of nostalgia for Zhivkov's rule, or I guess you could say for the People's Republic. And another thing which, you know, really grabbed my attention was the fact that Bulgaria was a pretty big producer of consumer goods, you know, and was also known as the Silicon Valley of the Warsaw Pact because of its emphasis on producing computer technologies.
Hladna esen minava nad men, sedem hълма над мене златея, нося ти песен от Пловдив родена, гласа на Димитров, нося ти в нея, лотос винтовка рало.
And you know, every good socialist capital city needs a palace of culture, and that's what you have here. Literally, the National Palace of Culture from 1981. So already in that final decade of people's Bulgaria. So, you know, just in terms of today where Bulgaria sits, I guess you can say politically and geostrategically, it's a member of NATO, it's a member of the European Union, and actually they just joined the Schengen area last year. So there was no border control with me flying in from Germany today. Only about a 2-hour flight from Berlin, so it's really not that far. But yeah, another thing is the Bulgarian currency is the lev for the time being. They are talking about bringing in the euro next year, but there have also been very significant protests against that. Well, good morning. Day 2 here in Sofia, and the weather forecast for today is not looking too good. It's about 9 a.m. right now, and thank goodness I'm outside already because thunderstorms are expected from, well, about 12 until sunset. And there's 2 places that I really want to check out. Both happen to be outdoors, so yeah, let's get going. And first things first, into the metro, which, you know, the metro is not from the socialist period, but it was already an idea during that time. I think the idea of the metro in Sofia went back to the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken. Alright, so let's get ourselves a ticket, and you can put that in English as well. Cash. Yeah, so it's 160 lev for a ticket, which I think is like 85 cents. Alright, so here's our ticket. And our destination this morning is Orlov Most, so that's only 2 stops on the train. I did take the metro in from the airport yesterday. It was about 40 to 45 minutes, I think, from there to the city center, and pretty impressive. I mean, the stations are super clean, way more so than Berlin, but I guess the bar is low when it comes to that. Alright, so that was a quick and easy journey. Now what we're looking for this morning is the Soviet Soldiers Memorial, which dates back to 1954, but they partially demolished it in 2023. So the idea is just to see what remains from it. I mean, hopefully something, and hopefully it's not fenced off as well, which would, well, be really inconvenient to say the least. Well, I can see it in the distance, and my fear is at least partially correct, because I think the entire area is off limits. We're not going to be able to get in there. But yeah, I think we can see a little bit from the outside. Yeah, so another condemned memorial. Well, just like Riga, which demolished theirs a few years back, just like Tallinn, which has left theirs to pretty much rot. But yeah, you can still see that actually parts of it are still here. So yeah, again, partially demolished, not in full, but totally off limits to us. So as we walk along the periphery, I guess you can say, of the memorial, I think one thing that's really fascinating is the fact that Bulgaria was not actually liberated by the Soviet Red Army. It was liberated by, well, its indigenous partisan units and what was known as the Fatherland Front, really spearheaded by the Bulgarian Communist Party and Georgi Dimitrov, but also involving, you know, a lot of other political formations. And on the 9th of September of 1944, they stage an uprising here in Sofia, and they're able to to, well, overthrow the fascist kingdom of Bulgaria, which had been a very integral part of the Axis powers, but had days before basically tried to say that it was now neutral because the Soviet Union was, well, moving in its direction and had declared war on Bulgaria. So yeah, an indigenous uprising and revolution, so to speak, and 2 years later, that's when the People's Republic of Bulgaria is proclaimed. Well, it does look like there's a little gap here, so maybe I can actually get it. Oh shit, here we are. Hopefully I don't get told off for this, but can at least get a better view of some of the, well, remnants. Yeah, well, at least I'm able to see what still remains, and I was able to sneak up in here. No security from the looks of it around the area, but yeah, I mean, this will all be gone soon enough, I guess. Well, I've just made it to what's known as the Museum of Art from the Socialist Period. And the only thing is, well, the rain is a little bit early, so let's see how much I'm able to film outdoors. There is also an inside area, which I'm going to check out in a moment. But yeah, this really reminds me of something known as Memento Park in Budapest, where they've taken a lot of the statues which would have been up around the city and presumably around the country and put them on display in one area. So I can already tell here, for example, there's a lot of Lenin, there's a lot of Dimitrov, and some other figures as well. Well, I guess he needs no introducing, Ernesto Che Guevara, the really quintessential internationalist, if you will, of the 20th century, having been born in Argentina and then having fought, of course, in not only Cuba, but also Congo, and then eventually dying in Bolivia in 1967. There's Dimitrov, once again, leader of the Comintern and leader of Bulgaria from 1946 until his death in 1949. And there's a huge Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, which maybe this was in the central square around the Largo, where I was yesterday. Another Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. I'm sure there would have been a lot of these around not only Sofia, but Bulgaria as a whole.
Zlatna esen minava nad men, sedem hълма над мене златея, нося ти песен от Пловдив родена, гласа на Димитров нося ти в нея, лотос, винтовка, рало, моя родина, Лаос, роза и българска есен.
Well, you know, the rain is not really letting up, so I think it's time to head up out of here. But I did manage to actually see everything, and pretty interesting, all of the works of socialist realism on display inside. I mean, a lot of paintings and things like that. And also, they had a bunch of posters from all around the world. So China, Albania, Hungary, the list goes on. Man, you know, I love a retro tram. These must be from the socialist period. Yeah, that's the thing. So the metro might not be from back during People's Bulgaria, but a lot of the trams are. And you can definitely tell because some of them look like they've been in operation for around 50 years. So they've got these coffee machines here, just like in, I believe it was Riga, Chisinau, perhaps? Can't remember. You know, there's nothing like a little 45-cent vending machine coffee to keep us going midway through the day. It does the job, let me say that much. Could this be an eternal flame? I don't really know. You're gonna have to help me with this if anybody knows the answer. I mean, I'll try to come up with it later myself, but what's exactly happening? Well, I guess you can say this is really the centerpiece to Sofia, the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. And let me just say, it's not the first cathedral with this name that we've seen on our travels. Man, it's so good to be back in the Balkans. And you know, this is not my first time here in Sofia. I was actually in this city about 10 years ago in the summer of 2015. And yeah, I mean, I only had about 48 hours in town then, and I have about the same amount of time here this go around. And after this, a little sneak preview, we're going to be heading off to the former Yugoslavia. So visiting some different republics to the ones that we went to last time. And the reason I even bring that up now is because, well, after World War II, with the victory of the anti-fascist forces, the communist forces in both Yugoslavia and Bulgaria, as well as Albania, it was assumed that there would be a Balkan Federation that took root. And Georgi Dimitrov and Josip Broz Tito had set this in motion in 1947. Unfortunately, with the Tito-Stalin fallout or the split, this was basically shelved indefinitely. But yeah, it's interesting to think about how, you know, of course, Yugoslavia, this country of 6 republics and 2 autonomous regions, which was very hard to keep together, but imagine if Bulgaria would have been added to the mix as well. The Ivan Vasov National Theater from the early 20th century, so not really part of our tour, but damn, it's beautiful. So in the 1950s, when Bulgaria was looking to promote tourism along the Black Sea, the tourism agency of the country, Balkan Tourist, ended up coming up with a salad known as the shopska. And it was sold initially just at one hotel or resort, but it really caught on. And today it's actually the national dish, so that's what we're looking to find this evening. I love how it's written here, seasonal offers, but nothing is actually written in English otherwise. I can't read the Cyrillic, but let's go check out restaurant Dobro. It means good, so, well, let's hope that's the case. Oh man, I fear that I've actually failed. There's no shopska salad on the menu, but the thing is, this place is super nice and there's not really anybody here at the moment, so I think I'm gonna stay and eat anyway, but we're gonna have to get our shopska maybe somewhere else around the Balkans on this trip. So I ended up going for what I think is really a pleskavica, the national dish of Serbia, but also very popular around the region. Oh man. Yeah, you know, so the temptation is definitely there to say that I failed with that dinner, not getting the shopska salad, but after tasting that beautiful pleskavica, there's no way that I can possibly say that. That being said, this is going to basically conclude this short trip to Sofia. We'll have to get our shopska salad somewhere in the former Yugoslavia, maybe tomorrow.